Well, since the fall of the brutal Assad regime late last year, there has been growing concern for the safety of religious minorities in Syria, Druze, Christians, and others, as they face an escalating wave of violence. Now, some have suggested that the attacks are part of a deliberate campaign of terror by foreign jihadis, Assad loyalists, and militias unleashed by the self-declared leader, Ahmad al-Sharar. And now there is growing pressure on the Trump administration for the U.S. to intervene, or at least to allow Israel, who wants to help, to take action. Joining me now to discuss this is Congressman Marlin Stutzman, who was one of the first members of Congress to actually visit Syria and meet with the new Syrian leader after the fall of the Assad regime. He represents the 3rd Congressional District of Indiana. Congressman Stutzman, welcome back to Washington Watch. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Tony. Great to be with you this evening.
I know we actually spoke with you when you were in Syria after you met with the new leader. You said then, when you met with him, you were cautiously optimistic about possibly more friendly relationships between the U.S. and Syria. Where do you stand today?
Yeah, well, you know, there's a lot of opportunity right now in Syria for the new government there, and al-Sharar is a young 42-year-old with a very checkered past. He was part of Al-Qaeda. He was part of HTS. He's been part of terrorist organizations, and he has been able to come to power in Syria without a shot being fired, and Assad is gone. Assad was a brutal dictator, killing almost 1 million or more of his own people just through political genocide. And one thing that we want to make sure happens in Syria is that we don't go from one brutal dictator to another one. But one of the symptoms that we're already seeing is that Christians and Druze have been slaughtered in the southeastern part of Syria. And so I appreciate you covering this, because this is an opportunity. It's maybe days, maybe a couple of weeks here, that we have a window here to put pressure on the new Syrian government by making sure, if they want to show the rest of the world that they're not going to kill their own people, that they're going to protect all backgrounds. Syria is a very diverse country. You have Christians, you have Druze, Kurds, Alawite, Muslims, and Bedouins, and a whole variety of others. It's a very dangerous place, but my hope and prayer is that the new government moves in a direction to protect everybody. But right now, the Christians and Druze have been under attack, and that's why we've been talking to our leaders and sending a letter to Secretary of State Rubio to be sure that, and this is what I find interesting, Tony, is that Christians don't have militia in Syria. They don't have militia in the Middle East necessarily. So they're dependent on the Druze to protect them, or the Kurds from the government that is attacking them. And so that's why we really need to be praying for the Christians and the Druze right now, for safety, for the ability to feed themselves. We need a humanitarian aid corridor into Soweto to be sure that they have the food and the water and the medical resources that they need to be able to survive this. And we're going to keep putting pressure on Damascus that this is not coming from Damascus, but there's a lot of signals here that we're trying to sort out where this is actually coming from.
So very quickly, the situation is that in the southern part of Syria, where you have the Druze population, the Christian population, they were attacked by jihadists that came in from other places. There's no direct connection to the Syrian government, although they've blocked access to others to get in. And so these Christians and Druze are kind of they're kind of surrounded. They can't get in or out, and they've poisoned their water. And so as you said, there's just a narrow window there. They're going to either die of starvation and lack of water and other resources. That's the reason for the humanitarian corridor, which Israel is ready to do. Israel wants to help, but it's like the United States is holding them back.
Well, and so the Druze population, there's a large Druze population in Syria and in Israel. And so the relationship between Israel and the Druze is very strong. As Prime Minister Netanyahu said, the brother of my brother is my brother. And so that's why they have such a strong bond between Israel and the Druze and the Christians there. And so, the Israelis are ready to help. But for whatever reason, we're trying to find out why are they not allowing humanitarian aid to go in. Now, I was told last week that the UN is delivering humanitarian aid, but it's not just directly into Soweto where we need it.
We saw how that worked out in Gaza.
Yep. That's right. No, that's exactly right. And that's why we're putting pressure on our own, asking our own leaders to be aware of what's happening in Soweto, that these people they're sitting ducks. I mean, they don't have the ability to defend themselves against these jihadists and ISIS. And I'll tell you what, if this is connected back to Damascus, it's going to make it very hard for members of Congress to support lifting any sanctions for Syria. And that's why this is critical that this get cleared up as quickly as possible. I think the evidence that comes from Damascus is if there's a humanitarian aid, these roads that you mentioned, if they're not blocked, then that means it's not coming from Damascus. But right now the roads are blocked, which it is not a good signal.
All right, Congressman Marlin Stutzman, we're out of time, but we're going to follow back up to get some clear action items as we see what the Trump administration is willing to do to help maybe just let Israel, give them the latitude to help solve the problem for the Druze there. But I appreciate you taking the leadership on this, and thanks for joining us today to bring us up to date.
Absolutely. Thank you for covering this.